Chilly roads on that gloomy Sunday morning in January 2003. The man appeared worn out as he shuffled along the rural highway's shoulder outside Waldron. As we got closer, my husband Sam slowed our vehicle, as he always did when he thought someone might need assistance. We were traveling the same route to church as before. 4 years, every Sunday. He might need help, Sam whispered. I nodded, worrying already pulling at him. Stop. It's too chilly to go for a walk outside. The visitor had an unshaven face, eyes down, hands deep in the pockets of a bulky coat. A rush of cold air came in when Sam rolled down the window. Are you all right? Do you need a ride? Sam inquired. The man's eyes were tired when he looked up, yet there was a piercing alertness in them. Yes, thank you, going south. Without hesitation, he climbed into the rear seat. I pivoted a little. Where precisely? Just down the road, he said in a steady voice without revealing anything. We gently returned to the deserted Arkansas highway, with the silent, soft morning light washing over the winter fields that stretched out on either side. The typical small conversation about the weather, the cold, and how he had been walking for a while continued for several minutes. Sam said, "It's a bad day to be out on foot." The man said, "Got no choice." Then he abruptly leaned forward. Sam felt a metal object push firmly against his temple. A tiny, black, and unmistakable gun. "Keep driving," he urged, his tone abruptly steely and flat. "Until I tell you to stop. Keep going." I gasped for air. "What?" I muttered. "What do you want?" "Head south in the direction of Texas. No shady dealings." Sam's knuckles whitened as he tightened his hold on the steering wheel. "Take money if you need it," he urged, cautiously. "We're not going to fight you." The man chuckled briefly. "Your money is not what I want. Back in Oklahoma, I murdered an elderly couple. Shoot them and beat them with a bat. The police are trying to find me. My ride out is you." The words were like a punch. Sam's face turned white. My gut churned. "Please," I was able. "We're having children and grandchildren. Let us go, please." Slowly, he shook his head. "Not taking place. Now take that detour." Sam pivoted as the van collided with a narrow, fractured rural road that was engulfed in trees. The branches curved upward like ribs enclosing us. No cars, no homes, no assistance. He led us through a labyrinth of back roads 4 hours, avoiding any freeways where he would be recognized. Branches shrieked against metal, gravel clattered against the undercarriage, and each curve carried us more into seclusion. "Why us, at last?" I inquired. "Anything to keep him human and to keep him talking." "You stopped," was his straightforward response. "Incorrect location, incorrect time." He described how he broke in, how the couple fought, and how he killed them. The tone of his voice remained constant. He seemed to be reading directions from a box. It was too casual, too chilly, and the terror seemed surreal. We passed fields covered in long, lifeless grass, crumbling barns, and deserted farms. Throughout, my heart rate hardly decreased. He once indicated a clearing. "Quit." Sam and I looked at each other in fear, but all he asked was to switch seats. Sam is driving him next to me. I forced myself not to shake and kept my hands visible, like a live thing. His pistol lingered between us. We entered the state of Texas. The roads became even more desolate, with meandering, remote sections of open space and pine forest. He repeatedly moved the rifle between Sam and myself while telling us, "I won't hesitate." Despite the cold coming in through the windows, I felt sweat build up on my forehead. "Do you require medical assistance?" Sam inquired quietly. The man snorted. "I'm a doctor." "No, just take me to Lufkin." He babbled on about his life, his fiancée, how she had broken up with him, and how everything had gone south after that. I pretended to understand, while nodding and whispering gentle answers. I prayed for any opening inside. He instructed Sam to pull into a tiny area near Lufkin. "Convenience store. The two of you remain in the van. I'll buy some food." However, he had second thoughts as he grabbed for the door. "No, Doc, you accompany me." She remains. My own as they left, their hearts pounded. Sam held the keys, but I wanted to flee. I waited for them to come back, every second a lifetime. He was eating a sandwich and carrying baggage. If they were on a road trip, we continued to drive. Sam had discreetly informed me earlier about the little .38 I kept for security in the console. Sam looked at me as the man relaxed and lowered the rifle a little. Now, Sam went outside to empty himself when the stranger instructed him to stop off on another peaceful stretch. With shaking hands, Sam grabbed for the console and pulled out the revolver. "Suzanne," he said, "get ready." The man came back and took a seat in the rear once more. "Go." Sam attempted to conceal the .38 as he moved slowly forward. The man observed his body stiffened as he raised his firearm. "What are you?" Sam pivoted and opened fire. There were 4 loud explosions in the cramped room. The man gave a violent jerk. His coat was splattered with blood. His gun only clicked as he attempted to shoot back. We discovered later that the firing pin had fractured due to previous blows. "You shot me," he yelled as he lunged. A flash of white anguish exploded behind my eyes as he slammed his fist into my head. Sam fought with him while he flailed, bloodied but enraged. Grabbing the keys, he pushed us out of our own van and drove off with his tires spitting gravel. We stumbled toward the road, scared, bleeding, and stunned. A passing vehicle screeched to a halt. "Please call the police," I said. "They did," I gasped. Officers showed up in a matter of minutes. Scott Eisenberg was the man's name. Sam informed them. Soon later, they discovered him in a local business, hurt and pleading for assistance. He was arrested immediately. My head was sutured at the hospital. Sam looked for wounds. Detectives later revealed the truth to us. After killing the couple in Oklahoma, Eisenberg had been evading capture for weeks. They had nothing to lose. We could have been next if Sam hadn't taken action. Years later, I still have dreams about that back road. The sensation that the world had shrunk to just us, the pistol shimmering in the cold, the Blackwoods engulfing the light, and a murderer with nothing to fear. Although we made it through, the shadow of that day continues to follow us on every vacant stretch of a highway. Every vacant stretch of a highway. The clearing, it was a chilly Friday night in the early spring, the kind where the sky promised warmer days ahead, but the air was still biting. My boyfriend Jack put his arm around my waist as we left the restaurant after dinner and suggested that we take a quick drive. Something calm, just the two of us. After just a few months of dating, we were still in that cozy, radiant phase where everything seemed natural. He was aware of my fondness for peaceful locations far from the city where the stars were brighter. I didn't follow his suggestion to take an ancient back road off the main highway. "Give it some thought. It's quicker," he remarked. "Take a shortcut. These days, very few people utilize it." It sounded fairly tranquil. We got into his vintage Ford. The heater took a long time to warm up. The chairs were worn out. And the kind of vehicle that, just by virtue of its familiarity, felt secure. Jack flipped the key. We rolled out of town as the engine trembled a wake dot as we moved onto the forgotten road. The pavement finally turned to gravel and plopped under the tires. The final remnants of daylight were engulfed by dense, tangled trees that pressed close on both sides. Even the far-off illumination of the dispersed farmhouses vanished. Jack lowered the volume on the radio so that a faint sound could barely be heard over the speakers. He answered, "See," offering my give your hand a light squeeze. "Shortcut, tranquil," I grinned, but my gaze kept going to the rearview mirror. There were no cars or headlights, just the dark woods and the thin ribbon of gravel surrounding us. I had no idea why, yet there was something about the flesh on the back of my neck prickled with emptiness. After about 10 minutes of driving, Jack stopped close to a tiny clearing where moonlight peeked through the bushes. "Let's stop for a bit," he said. "Speak. You've appeared to be quiet." I tilted my head, simply exhausted from work, leaning against the seat. "Being here with you is pleasant, though." And it was, for the time being at least. We discussed commonplace topics, his grueling week at the mill, my plans for the weekend, where we may travel if the weather got nicer. It seemed simple, natural, as usual. Then the window was illuminated by a dazzling beam of light. Jack tensed abrupt, sharp, and out of character. He muttered, "Another car." However, I heard no engine, only quiet. Then came heavy footsteps crunched on the gravel. "Who the hell?" Jack squinted and leaned forward. A figure moved into his own flashlight's beam. A white cotton mask with rudimentary eye slits conceals a tall, broad face. The beam blindingly swung at us. Clearly, he had a gun in his other hand. "Get out of the car," he murmured in a low, unsettlingly composed voice, as if he had said those words before. Jack held on to the steering wheel. "Look, hey, we wish to avoid any problems." The man gave the window a forceful tap with the rifle. "Out of you both." Jack's sleeve caught my fingers. "Perhaps we ought to take a drive." His jaw was clenched as he shook his head. "Let's maintain our composure." He then unlocked the door. As the chilly air surged about us, I followed, my legs wobbly. The illumination lingered over our faces. "Take money out of your pockets." Jack dropped everything he owned, including his wallet and keys. "Please just take it." The man laughed briefly and hollowly. "It has nothing to do with money." And he swung the spotlight down hard before either of us could respond. It broke across Jack's forehead. "Jack." He staggered, blood already streaming down his face, and I cried out. The man struck him once more. This time, the gun's butt caused Jack to fall to the ground. I retreated. Breath was ripping from my chest. "Please don't hurt him," I pleaded. The eyes on the mask turned to face me. "You're coming with me." With a hard, iron hold on my wrist, he pulled me in the direction of the trees. Dazed, Jack moaned on the ground, incapable of standing. The man whispered, "Scream all you want," as we made our way farther into the darkness. "Nobody hears you out here." The gun was cold and merciless against my ribs as he pushed me up against a tree, the bark scraping my back. "Do whatever I say, or I'll die," he muttered. With all my nerves shaking, I nodded. "All right, just stop hurting him." Using the spotlight, he gestured. "Take a stroll." We moved a few feet. Underfoot, branches snapped. I could hardly hear anything else since my heart was pounding so hard. I had flashes of story ideas. The ones you think happened to someone else somewhere else, until they failed to do so. I took one look back, only time, and noticed Jack's lifeless body close to the vehicle. I will always remember that exact moment and the angle of him lying there. The man snapped his eyes forward. That's when I noticed it. A loose, jagged rock half buried in the ground. I bent slightly to put my fingers around it as I pretended to trip. I then used all of my strength to swing. His forearm was struck by the rock. The firearm shot into the undergrowth. "Grabbing for me," he yelled. I swerved and ran in the direction of the road. "Jack, stand up." Behind me, his footsteps thundered. When I got to the car, I struggled with the handle. Then I felt a sharp ache in my shoulder as he smashed me against the side. "You ought not to have done that," he growled. I gave him a forceful kick to the knee. His grasp relaxed as he grunted. With my throat sore and my lungs burning, I broke away and ran down the gravel road. He yelled, "Come back." Behind me, a flashlight beam whips back and forth. With branches tearing at my arms, I dove into the trees. There was a faint glow somewhere ahead. A home, an opportunity. I saw it as I emerged from the woods onto a small path, an historic farmhouse with a porch light that shines like a lifeline. I ran over to it and pounded on the door. "Please help." With wide eyes, an elderly woman cracked it open. "What's the issue?" "We were attacked by a man. My guy is in pain. Kindly give the cops a call." She grabbed the phone, pulled me inside, and locked the door. The man stopped at the edge of her yard and stared at me through the window. He then vanished back into the shadows. A few minutes later, the police showed up. Jack was discovered alive but severely hurt. They combed the woods 4 hours in search. However, the man with the mask had disappeared as though the darkness had engulfed him. Jack needs sutures. I required time. The bruises gradually healed over the course of several weeks, but the terror persisted. There were more reports. Attacks on remote back roads are similar. People stopped using shortcuts and stopped driving at night. Eventually, Jack and I drifted apart. While some experiences create strong bonds between people, others leave lasting wounds. Even though we were in love, that night hung over us like a ghost. Still, That road, that diversion, that moment decision to fight. I wouldn't have allowed myself to finish the thought if I hadn't run and grabbed that rock. Certain roads are traps lurking in the shadows rather than shortcuts. Lurking in the shadows rather than shortcuts. The trunk I missed the bus on a beautiful September night in 1992. Every sound reverberated, a bit too loudly off the desert streets on one of those evenings when the desert air lingered still around desert hot springs. Already aware that I would be late for my 10, I stood by myself at the stop with a plastic bag full of candies for the girls at work, shuffling from foot to foot. P.M. shift. I didn't have much space to make mistakes when I was 19 years old and working as a nurse's assistant at a home for children with disabilities. There was nobody on the street, just the distant hum of the highway, no voices, no automobiles. Then, slowly and deliberately, headlights drifted toward me as they crested the slope. The window of a little automobile fell down as it rolled to a stop. "You need a lift," the driver said. Over the passenger seat, he leaned. A young man in a basic t-shirt who was shaven. His voice was soothing, amiable, and innocuous. I looked at my watch and paused. Time was slipping away. At last, I opened the door and answered, yes. He identified himself as Andrew and claimed to be a local Marine. He asked me about my itinerary and casually discussed his employment during the little 5-minute drive. Nothing really eerie, however. There was something about his inquiries that seemed a little too intimate, as if he was attempting to mentally categorize me. I dismissed it nonetheless. I was young, innocent, and in a hurry to get to work. He gave me a casual smile as we drove up in front of the building. "Could you give me your phone number? Perhaps we could get together at some point." I didn't want to give him my actual phone number, but I also didn't want to be impolite. I hurriedly hopped out after giving him a phony one and thanking him for the ride. I didn't believe it mattered at the time. Work continued as usual, providing food, bathing, and consolation to children who were dependent on us for everything. I was exhausted, but stable by the time 6 in the morning arrived, and I was prepared to go into bed. When I went outside, the sun had just begun to turn the sky pink. I heard tires on gravel at that point, slowly coming. My stomach plummeted as I turned, as if he had been waiting. The same man in the identical automobile pulled up next to me. "Hey," he said softly, "do you need a ride home? Or breakfast, perhaps?" I chuckled uneasily. A ride would be lovely, but no breakfast. It's not that far. It was okay, I told myself. He had once assisted me. He appeared normal, and I was too exhausted to think clearly. For a brief time, the morning seemed serene as we got behind the wheel. However, the silence grew longer and denser. Then, in a flat voice, he uttered it. "I referred to that number that you provided me." A pause. It wasn't real. My heart skipped a beat. "Look." He yanked the wheel and violently pulled over before I could finish. He reached out and grabbed my arm so tightly that it bruised. His expression had shifted. Tight, acerbic, furious. He insisted. "Why did you lie to me?" I muttered, attempting to get loose. "I just didn't know you." "Give up." However, he was more powerful. He reached into the glove box, pulled a coil of rope, and tugged my wrists behind me with practiced motions. He quickly and brutally bound my hands despite my cries, kicks, and pleas. "Please stop. What are you doing?" I sobbed. He remained silent, with the tires grinding on a gravel lane that headed into the untamed, wide desert. He shifted the car into drive and turned off the main road. Homes vanished. The street lights disappeared. Just desolation, sharp rocks, and endless cacti. After what seemed like an eternity of driving, he came to a stop on a desolate area of the country. The wind was the only sound. "Get out," he commanded. He unlocked my door when I failed to move quickly enough and pulled me out as if I were worthless. In one neat action, he pushed me up against the car, took out a knife, and cut off my shorts and shirt. "Please," I trembled and whispered. "Please don't do this." He disregarded me. Something stopped him from forcing himself on me. Anger, annoyance, incapacity. I had no idea. Whatever it was, It only made him more angry. His fist repeatedly struck my face and ribs, causing my eyesight to go blurry and my mouth to fill with blood. Then he leaned in and bit my neck till my skin started to break. The pain was so intense that I yelled, "Why are you acting in this way?" I gave a gasp. "If you want to kill me, then go ahead. You're a coward." He became agitated at the word coward. His fists cracked across my stomach, shoulders, and brain as he struck faster and harder. I assumed he would abandon my body in that silent state, like so many other desolate stretches. Rather, he took hold of my arms and dragged me to the trunk. "Get in," he ordered icily. "I won't," I sobbed as I gave a feeble kick. However, he shoved me inside and slammed the lid shut after lifting me like a rag doll. I was engulfed in darkness. The atmosphere was hot, dense, and oppressive. The automobile lurched forward once more, farther into the desolation. As soon as the engine started, I twisted in the trunk till my shoulders screamed. My knees hit the metal. My wrists were burning. I whispered to no one. "Help me," to God and to myself. However, I continued to work at the rope, pressing my fingernails into the knots until one wrist broke free. Next, the other. My fingers searched for something in the shadows, a vulnerability, a latch, a hinge. Then, amazingly, I sensed it. The release for emergencies. For a turn, the vehicle slowed. I inhaled, forced myself to push beyond my fear. The trunk opened. Sunlight and wind blasted in. I rolled out, half naked, battered, bleeding, my flesh ripping on the rocks as I hit the ground hard. I got up and raced in the direction of the highway's far-off brightness. I heard his automobile screech to a stop behind me. His footsteps pounded the ground as a door slammed. I turned around. He was chasing me while brandishing a machete. "Come back," he shouted. "I'm going to cut you. Quit." However, I continued. I raced till my feet tore on the desert floor and my lungs burned. I fled because I would die if I stopped. Then there were miraculous headlights. A vehicle on the highway. Inside are 2 Marines. I screamed, "Help," as I stumbled into the traffic and waved my arms. "Please assist." They immediately stopped. A man leapt out, wrapped his jacket around me, and led the way into the truck. "What happened?" he inquired, his eyes wild. "He abducted me. He attempted to murder me. He is directly behind me." Pointing back, I gasped. When Erdialis noticed them, he paused and ran away, his car vanishing in a cloud of dust down the road. I was hurried to safety by the Marines. The cuts, bruises, and bite were all treated by medical professionals at the hospital. My statement was taken by the police. I told them everything. He was a blue-car driving Marine, Andrew something. The license, I believe, had us soon after. The scene in the desert was demolished for building. The evidence disappeared. There was no arrest for years. Instead, nightmares appeared. I managed to live despite the trunk slamming shut, his footsteps pursuing me, and his voice reverberating. Detectives from Illinois made the call in 1997. They said, "We have a suspect. He admitted to assaulting you. Serial killer Andrew Erdialis. 8 women were killed, and their remains were disposed of in locations similar to the desert area he showed me. He gave a perfect description of you." I was informed by the detective about the trunk escape and the fictitious number. I looked at the man who had tried me when I testified in court to take my own life. "That's him," I said in a firm voice. I was attacked by the man. He was found guilty. Death row after several life sentences. He committed suicide in 2018. I was able to recover something by writing my book. Attempted to steal my life, my power, and my voice. In my own way, I pardoned him. For myself, not for him. However, I shall always remember that evening. The blackness of the trunks, the wind of the desert, and the sensation of nearly being another anonymous victim. I learned this from it. Your gut feelings are important. Fighting for your life is worthwhile, and sometimes the loudest, most powerful truth you can express is survival. Most powerful truth you can express is survival. The turn off in the dark, I made the decision to leave early that evening after working a lengthy shift at the Prince George Cafe. I had driven hundreds of miles on Highway 16 in my old truck without any complaints. However, I noticed a small side road that I had occasionally heard people mention as I noticed traffic slowing to a crawl up ahead. They claimed that if you were prepared to take a small risk, it would cut straight through the trees and emerge close to Smithers. I smelled of coffee and grease, was exhausted, and was already daydreaming about taking a hot shower. So I made the turn without really thinking about it. It wasn't too horrible at first. Tall pines rose like silent walls on either side as gravel popped beneath the tires. The smell of sap wafted in as I slid down the window to allow in some cold air. I let the engine soothe me for a few minutes while I just got used to the drive's rhythm. However, after 10 minutes or so, the road began to alter. There are deeper ruts, more potholes, and branches scratching the hood. My headlights flickered over rusty logging signs that pointed to places where no one had worked for decades and were half covered in shrubs. Whether it was a shortcut or an error, that persistent notion snuck in. The motor sputtered once, then again, and it died entirely before I could swear. The lights faded as the truck rolled to a stop. I gave the ignition a try. Nothing, just quiet. Naturally, there was no signal on my phone. The world disappears from the map out here. Pretending to know what I was looking at, I opened the hood and got out. It was too quiet in the forest. The air itself seemed to be listening, as if it were heavier. At that moment, I heard another engine growl behind me. Headlights penetrated the woods, slowly and methodically, until a battered, dark van came to a stop a short distance away. Everything briefly went dark again once the driver killed the engine, with the exception of his parking lights. A towering man emerged, wide shoulders, a tattered jacket, and boots covered in crusted muck. His eyes slid past mine before landing on me, and he had a scruffy beard and appeared to be in his mid-40s. He said, "Need some help?" in a flat, quiet voice that was almost as serene. "Yes," I said warily. "The truck just passed away. Won't begin." "Are you familiar with engines?" With his hands still in his pockets, he approached and peered over the hood. "These vintage models become picky. The alternator can be the cause. The fuel line, perhaps." I felt his shoulder on mine, not by accident. I took a step back. "Name's Tom," he continued. "Reside nearby." I said, "I'm Emily," since I felt bad about not responding. "I might be able to call a tow if you have a functional phone." He gave a head shake. "There is no signal here. However, there is a landline at my house. That way, 5 minutes ago." He gave a nod in the direction of the darker area of the forest where the road gradually curved away. I paused. It felt dangerous to leave my truck. Yet being by myself in the dark with it seemed worse to have no way to reach anyone. He said he would try jumping the truck first. I allowed him since it was a sensible gesture. However, the truck was as lifeless as stone after multiple attempts. With a dull thud, he closed the door of his van. "Plan B," he stated. "Jump in. We'll help you reach that phone." I got into the passenger seat. The interior smelled of metal and old oil. There were dark stained rags, cans sliding beneath the seat, and tools strewn across the floorboards. The mess seemed to go unnoticed by him. With the branches scratching the roof like claws, he began driving back the way he had come, further into the forest. After a minute, he looked at me and said, "So, what brings you down this road?" "I'm on my way home from work," I stated. I wanted to save time. He laughed softly and without humor. "Not many people visit this area. It's a nice spot to be by yourself, peaceful and secluded." My gut knotted with the way he lingered on private. I looked out the window. All that was seen was the swirl of trees closing in and darkness. "How long have you lived around here?" I inquired. "Long enough to know every turn," he remarked. "I've seen people get lost out here." He shrugged. "Some find their way back, others. Woods absorb everything." I forced a courteous chuckle. "It sounds lonely." He gave a faint, incorrect smile. "Sometimes the company shows up, unexpected." We went by an old shed with its doors hanging open like a mouth in a clearing. However, he continued to drive without slowing down. He said, "You have family waiting on you." "My sister," I blurted out, She anticipates my return shortly. He gave one nod. Sisters are good. I had one. An accident on such a road. I apologized. Don't be, he whispered. Not at all. Things take place. Suddenly, he turned onto a narrow dirt lane that branched off into the forest. I tensed up. I assumed your location was nearer to the main thoroughfare. Shortcut, he said. Nearly there. However, we weren't. We were moving deeper. The van was navigating through dense undergrowth. There were no houses, no lights, just darkness drawing nearer. A chilly, sluggish understanding crept at my back. There was a problem. Very incorrect. I noticed it in the rearview mirror when I looked around the van. Behind us, there was a gleam of metal on the floor that was partially hidden by a cloth, a tool, a knife. I was unable to tell. However, it wasn't accidentally placed there. He saw me staring. He nonchalantly extended his hand back. I didn't hold off. I snatched the door handle and pushed it open as the van slowed due to a pothole. Stop the van, I shouted in a trembling voice. He slammed the brakes and growled, "What the hell are you doing?" I fell out, hit the floor, rolled, and scurried to my feet. Adrenaline propelled me toward the trees, despite a sharp pain in my side. I rushed blind through the darkness behind me, branches tearing at my skin and clothing. His boot struck the ground as the van door slammed. "Hey, Emily," he yelled, mimicking my name. "Via the trees, you're not interested in going outside. It's not secure." Nevertheless, I ran. I heard him crash through the woods, somewhere behind me, as I zigzagged through the underbrush and hid behind trees. Everything was muffled out by my heartbeat. Then there was quiet. His steps came to a halt. The van's engine roared to life and disappeared down the road a moment later. I remained hidden until my hands stopped feeling. The road was deserted when I eventually slipped back to it. The darkness seemed unconcerned, as if it had absorbed the proof. I strolled before I got to the freeway. I had to travel miles. I was picked up by a passing car, and although the police reported the incident, the van was never located. Tom, or whatever his true name was, wasn't either. Sometimes I still drive that stretch, the Highway of Tears, Highway 16. Individuals vanish along it with horrifying regularity, and sometimes I hear it again. So I keep my eyes forward when I pass one of those lonely turnoffs that promise shortcuts. Some people find their way back because of the way he phrased it. Others in the forest absorb stuff. Others in the forest absorb stuff.